welcome to Truck Tech. I'm Thomas Wasson, and the topic for today is an especially cool one. It is engine remanufacturing. And so it's one thing for me to learn how to make engines and how they're manufactured, but there is also an entire other subset that talks about how to not only the benefits for manufacturers and suppliers, but there's a webinar that's coming up that's talking about it. And this is a really cool thing because we're going to be bringing on the folks from the Engine Technology Forum to tell us a little bit about it, not only about their upcoming webinar, but how the heck this works. And so without further ado, let's welcome on our guest, Allen Schaeffer. He is the executive director at the Engine Technology Forum. And Allen, super excited to get to talk to you. You've been a guest on the past. Welcome to the show.
Great to have you. Great to be with you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
And let's dive in. One of the big things is when we're talking about remanufacturing engines and components, give us a quick overview about how common is this? How's the process work for folks who have not heard about it before? Give us some backstory.
Sure. Well, I think it's one of the best kept secrets, frankly, of the heavy duty industry. And in a broad picture view, there's a study done. It's been about a decade ago now, and it's the only government study we've seen. But it estimates that there are over about 300 firms that are actively involved in engine remanufacturing and rebuilding, and that seems like a decent sized number. Our focus for our event is really going to be on heavy duty engine manufacturing for both the on and off road sector. And when we think about the sort of the sustainability portfolio of the industry, certainly we've heard tons about all the advanced engine technology for new engines, exploring new fuels like electricity, hydrogen for internal combustion engines, everything talking about new in the future. But there's also been for decades, really, a business unit that these companies have that's remanufactured. And it's been a great value for the users of engine technology, engines both in the on and off road sector, providing them with a unique option that's available. And it has all the features that contribute to a circular economy. As we're thinking more and more about sustainability and how we can reduce our footprint from anything from the waste that we generate to the amount of emissions that come out from our manufacturing, or how many raw minerals and energy we use to make things. Those are all factors that are a consideration now in every American company, and certainly all of our members are very focused on sustainability, both in their manufacturing operations, their plants, etc. But they've also got this reman business that provides this great sustainability, circular economy type service for their customers.
And I've heard about glider kits. So it reminds me of how, so in trucking, you can buy an older engine that has been rebuilt, and it allows you to put it in. If you have like an engine before like 2000 or something, year model, you could get it fully rebuilt, and that was a way to not have to use ELDs. Is that one of the kind of ideas? Is I'm basically taking an older block, or is it, when we're talking about it, is it more of I've got a lightly used engine that I can keep the block? Tell us a little bit about what do you normally see what can be resalvaged?
Sure. Well, I think, first of all, from the beginning, heavy duty engines have always been built and designed with remanufacturing in mind. And in fact, one of the segments of our upcoming webinar is going to get into that area and talk a little bit more even about the future. And there's some exciting new work there. I think Jeff Sutherland from Caterpillar is going to give us some of those insights from Cat. But these companies have perfected the ability to serve their customers with a remanufactured product. And so what we're really talking about is, let's picture a heavy duty truck engine. The engine's been designed to last for 500, 800, a million mile, 800,000, almost a million miles, before it needs major service or overhauling. And once you've gone through sort of a major in-frame rebuild, maybe the next step is that, that engine is worn out. You're getting lower fuel economy, concerned about maintenance. What do you want to do? You still love your custom truck, but you don't want to invest in a new engine. Maybe you can't afford it, or one that you need is not readily available. Well, through the remanufacturing program, by exchanging that worn engine you'll get one that is a suitable replacement for that specific application, that power rating, everything that would make and bring that in this case that truck sort of back to whole, make it like new again, but with a rebuilt engine. And so the process is a circular one where you find an engine that is in need of rebuilding. It comes into the system, and the engine core, those heavily machined components, the pistons and cylinders, the pieces that really are the wear pieces. And those are really the focus of a lot of the heavy duty engine remanufacturing. So there's a whole process to bring the engine in, to disassemble it, to replace the wear parts, so to speak, to make sure the tolerances and things are at the proper level, and to put that thing back together in a like new condition. So it delivers effectively a like new kind of experience, but at significant cost savings to the user. So by exchanging your worn out engine, you're going to get a remanufactured engine that can work just as good as the new one. And that's ultimately the simplistic part of the process. But it's not just engines; it's components as well. And I think many in the trucking industry are familiar with rebuilding fuel injectors over a period of time. That's one of the main components that can be rebuilt. But there's also other pieces too. Turbochargers and other things can be salvaged and can be rebuilt and then put back in a sort of a like new condition on a remanufactured product. So it's one of those things where we've got this significant investment. I mean, let's be honest. Heavy duty engines are not inexpensive. And we've used as much useful life out of it as we can get. And now it's time to make a decision. And getting a remanufactured engine, exchanging your worn engine for a new one is an increasingly interesting option for many, many companies.
How much savings can I get? It's a two-parter. So I guess an average engine before a big rebuild about 500,000 to a million miles, or 800,000 to a million miles. When's the time you see folks like when do they decide, hey, I want to like switch out my engine? Because I feel like do you get like a big discount as well when you trade in your used engine for the rebuilt one? I know it's kind of a three-parter at this point, but I'm curious what the big, when you're going down the metaphorical ski slope,
Yeah.
what are the big flags that I'm starting to see that are red that I need to say, hey, I need to look into this?
Yeah, well, I think every case is unique, sort of there's no right or wrong for when the right time is. It's usually based on a combination of factors. With fuel economy, performance, and something goes wrong, it's in need of a major expense or overhaul, or somebody says you've got a blown engine or something, um, and that's the point in time. Obviously, you're at a sort of a crisis situation where you need something that's going to go back in pretty quickly. And the beauty of the remanufacturing process is it's not that you're taking the engine out of your truck and sending it away and then waiting for 6 weeks until that engine, that specific engine of yours, has been remanufactured and put back like new, and you're getting that very same engine back. It's not that. It's you're trading in your old worn out engine and you're getting a remanufactured one just like it that someone else has turned into core engine, and it's been rebuilt in the process. It's been tested thoroughly, and now it's sitting on a pallet or crate, being ready to be shipped out, in pretty quick order. So it's the process and sort of the trigger for rebuilding, remanufacturing, is really dependent on individual circumstances. I don't think there's any sort of rule of thumb about that. Certainly, when you get into the newer technology engines, probably seeing less of those and probably seeing more of the generation that's in the pre 2015 range. I would guess pretty much.
And looking at the old versus new ones, so is it easier to do full rebuilds for those before 2015, or is that something where the remanufacturing process just has to change gears a little bit for these newer blocks?
Yeah, I think it's in each each model year, sort of generation, if you will, of engine technology has changed, right? With a lot of that being engine emission standards have been driving that. So certainly the milestones of engines that were built before 2010 have a very different emissions system on them and emissions control technology and engine managing computer than the ones that have been built since after 2010. And of course, each year after that, there's been iterations of improvement by each manufacturer. The EPA standards, excuse me, haven't changed, but the engines and sort of all the bells and whistles changed, much like any new car. There's updates and improvements along the way. So manufacturers are just sort of focused on what do they have coming in and what can they replace it with going out. And in most cases, it's a fit problem, right? Can the engine fit in the frame? Is it a suitable replacement? And so you rarely find and there's also legal requirements about what you can and can't do. And in terms of retrofitting you can't sort of backslide into getting a higher emitting older engine in play if you've got a certain generation one, so that the truck is certified at a certain level. So you have to be respectful of that. But each manufacturer has very elaborate process by evaluating those and bringing them back to snuff, whatever they are. Certainly, the closer you get into generations with advanced emissions control technology, those are more sophisticated kind of things as well. And one thing we didn't touch on yet, but is going to be a part of our webinar series, is the emissions control system itself. And there's a basic question about, well, what about that? What happens when your particulate filter is met the end of its useful life, or what happens when your SCR system, maybe one is damaged or has to be replaced, and you have to get a new a replacement system. Am I going to have to get a brand new one, or is there something that's rebuilt available? Well, there is some good news there as well. And Johnson Matthey, which is really the premier provider of emissions control technology for heavy duty trucks, and certainly in the particulate filtration world, and other parts of the system as well. They're going to talk about their role in recycling platinum group metals. So that's taking exhaust catalyst systems and other things that might get going to the scrap heap, and instead those rare metals are recovered, they're treated, and brought back into the manufacturing stream. So the new truck that you buy today might have a fraction of the fancy metals that are in that exhaust after treatment system from a truck that has been on the road a decade before, and they were able to recover and reuse some of those metals. So we think about circular economy with this industry. It's really multifold. It's the engines, it's the components, and it's parts of the components in that after treatment system.
I'm curious about that. Let's talk about the after treatment some more. I've had issues where, the more complex the after treatment systems are, the more after treating they're doing, the more they're going to get worn out. Is that something where, when you're looking at the circular economy, for makers, I'm assuming you got to like partner up with some of the dealerships and some of the places and say, hey, please don't throw this away. I'd love to get a hold of it. Or are OEMs and other makers saying, look, I can start reusing this. It's not just going out to the heap. Was there's kind of like a process that goes into when we're trying to save this? Is there anyone kind of leading the charge?
Yeah, I think on those kinds of things, I think it's less the OEM manufacturer than it is some of the secondary or other parts of the industry sector. I don't know that manufacturers are necessarily in that part of the business, but there are others who are, and they recover those pieces and kind of get them back into the system. But it's ultimately dependent on sort of what is the state of the vehicle, or the engine and the tractor, or the off-road machine or equipment. And the off-road sector is particularly of interest here because those machines are very unique, do lots of unique kinds of work, and the excavator or the shovel or the wheel loader may have lots of useful life on it, but the engine has seen better days. So that sector is particularly in a good position to benefit from remanufacturing, and also because there are many fewer new units sold every year, and that equipment tends to stay in the marketplace for a long time because of its higher initial cost, and its frequency of use is maybe less on an annual basis than, let's say, a highway truck that's cranking down 120,000 miles a year. An excavator may only be putting in, several hundred hours a year. Over, a period of 10, 15 years, it's still a good machine, but maybe time to think about making sure the engine can keep it going longer.
That's really cool. I was thinking about the vocational Class 8 section, like your dump trucks and stuff, but totally forgot about like the front end loaders and the claws. So it's like the hydraulics are good, all the claws working, but just the engine itself, you're just going to get out and buy. Is that still currently on the secondary market? I'm assuming you're partnering with like shops and stuff, and they say, hey, look, I got a rebuilt one here in the box. Let's just do some swapsies. I'm going to take yours and give you a discount. Or is it something where like is there any specific process for folks who want to buy something remanufactured that they have to go through?
I think it starts before you're having your service or work done, right? I mean, they're going to give you the options that are available to you, and certainly if you're going to if the OEM, equipment dealer is the one you've been working with to service and provide you with everything for that machine, they're going to present options to you. I mean, maybe they're going to try and sell you a new excavator, but they might also say, hey, we can put a remanufactured engine back in that thing in a week's time for, this cost. Whereas, it might take a longer time to get a new machine or something like that. So I think it's very much dependent, sort of the brand's taking care of the brand. I don't know that in the off-road space, especially, that there's a lot of, sort of um, ubiquitous sort of rebuilders out there because the engines and the equipment is so much more specialized. But certainly when we get back into the highway sector, many more third parties out there that are in the engine remanufacturing business beyond just the OEMs. Many more choices there, but I think on the off-road side, it's really more focused on the heavy duty OEMs and maybe one or two other companies.
Well, talking about like you had a really great point earlier about how if you're wanting to use a remade engine, you have to make sure it matches the vehicle and what it's spec'd for. So I brought up the glider kits. I thought earlier, I was like, well, crap, I can't just buy an older engine to get around these regulations. There's a lot more in it. So you almost would have to um, if I'm looking to like save some money and stuff, would I have to have like an older body to buy an older engine? As I'm assuming the rebuild is like if I got like a 2016 Cascadia, I need an engine from that range. I can't just plug in like a 1986 engine onto like a 2016 frame.
Right, probably not. I mean, and ultimately, the whoever's doing that has some obligation too for compliance on their end. But I think in most cases, it boils down to fitment, right? It's just won't fit. And so you're when I said earlier that manufacturers design new products so they can be remanufactured. So they think about that, sort of what's the ease of extracting this engine out of the frame and putting a replacement back in. And there's got to be certain tolerances there. So if you were, it's like you have to have it, the same shoe has to fit as the original. So that is ultimately the best thing for both the user and the manufacturer. Because remember, these are very highly tested, validated units that you're getting. When they're remanufactured, they're going through all kinds of performance tests. Some of them are doing emissions checks on them as well. So you're getting something that's really pretty close to being new, but getting it at a lower cost, maybe in a faster time frame in some instances than you otherwise would.
And I'm kind of curious as well when we're thinking about designing for these remanufactured engines, once I have installed a remanufactured engine, let's say it had like 800,000 miles on the block and it's fully remanufactured, does it normally last another 800,000 or is there something where maybe the engine block or certain components how much more juice do I get out of it if I get with like a remanufactured engine when it's time to like really trade in my engine because maybe I love my truck's body style and I don't want to like buy another truck?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think each manufacturer, that'd be a good one for them to answer specifically. My sense is that you're going to get as much useful life out of that as, or just about as much as you put into the initial product. So, they're building that engine to return to close to brand new condition. So you should expect, pretty close to the same kind of durability, because again, it's a major investment. You want to get the benefit of that investment over time. So it would be, you know, the numbers have to work out for the user, right? That your investment today is going to last you for this many miles or this amount of time to make it work. So that, you want to get it as close as possible to what the original expectation was, what you got out of it, I should say.
And speaking of the more the technology side as well, is so for diesel, there's an extensive on highway. There's a network of folks who are redesigning it. For your hydrogen, your natural gas, alternative fuels. I know there's been a recent engine I wrote about them, Hexagon Agility, and they had like a block that's a 16 or 15 liter engine that can run. Is that something where you can like rebuild them, or is it right now diesel engines are kind of the only thing I can really do a good remanufacture of, and then maybe some of these new emerging or less used fuel sources and technologies? Is that something you all are thinking about as well?
I'm sure that's going to come up in our webinar. And I know manufacturers are certainly thinking along those lines. I think it's a question of numbers, and certainly on the natural gas side, I think there's already that capability is there for remanufacturing, just like diesel. I think when you get beyond that into some of the unique fuels that folks are looking at, particularly hydrogen at this point, I'm not sure that there's enough experience really understanding that yet to, or a population of knowledge that would make that a business case that would be worth pursuing. Just not sure exactly about that. I, you know, I my I'll give you my personal experience on this. I had um, and don't laugh now. I had a 1976 Pinto wagon that was bought as a used car. Used it for the first couple years of college, and it just pooped out one day. It just stopped, and it was one of those tow it in, and the mechanic comes out. He's got this bad look on his face, like this engine's shot, man. What do you want to do? And there you are. And my father was like, well, can we get a replacement engine? And sure enough, this was before the internet. Couple of phone calls later, and a week or two later, an engine arrived, dropped it right in, and the car went on for another couple of years. So I sold it. So I know that it works, and performance was great afterwards. But I'm sure it's better today. But I think the light duty sector has more, definitely more choices in some of the secondary um, market. There are people that make this their specialty. I mean, they take all different kinds of manufacturers and bring their engines in, and are willing to take the time and effort to rebuild different ones of those. The heavy duty world may be a little bit more brand centric, because that's what they do. They do it well. They really optimize to that business line.
And final thoughts as well. Is there anything, I guess, for emerging, especially in remanufacturing, any kind of cool emerging technologies, any cool things that are on your radar? I get to talk a lot about, you talk autonomous trucks, EVs, fuels, infrastructure. Is there anything in the remanufacturing world that you think maybe folks don't know much about that you're really excited or you're watching develop?
Yeah. Well, I think we're gonna hear a little bit about that because in today's world where engines are designed across continents, really, different, maybe dozens, if not hundreds of engineers have their fingers in some aspect of engine design. How do you make sure that the finished product is in fact suitable for use? How can you prove that it is in fact going to work? And so we're going to hear some interesting approaches to that from Caterpillar and some other companies, to sort of think about it from a enterprise-wide approach to getting that right, and sort of again forward thinking about engines in the future. The ones we build today, we want to continue to remanufacture those, but we need to design them today. And you can imagine that we've really come a long ways in terms of technology. So it's even more challenging now to think about that, in 3 to 5 years, remanufacturing today's engines, which are more complex, have more systems on it, more integration with other things. So designing with that in mind at the beginning, you're going to see the fruits of that labor, in the next 2, 3, 5 years down the road.
Well, we're really excited to watch the development. And I got to plug in the webinar as well. I know you're going to have some really great folks on it. Alan, if folks want to sign up for this webinar, check it out. Give us some more info on that.
Yeah, so visit our website at www.enginetechforum.org, and there's a little button on there. You can just click that and register. The webinar is free. Just get your seat reserved, and you'll get all the login information for that virtual event coming up soon. We've got folks from Caterpillar, Cummins, Deere, Stanadyne, and Johnson Matthey are going to be presenting. So quite a lineup, and we're looking forward to that event.
Perfect. That happens to be one of the sponsors for Truck Tech. Big shout out to the Cummins folks. Good people. All right. Alan, thank you
Indeed.
so much for your time as well. We're going to catch up soon and definitely see what y'all are cooking up.
Thanks. Have a great day.
All right, that's going to be a wrap for this segment here. But if you are just joining us, you can check us out. We're going to be on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. While you're at it, sign up for the Truck Tech newsletter. It goes out Fridays at 11 a.m. Also, there is the Freight Fraud Symposium. We'll throw up a graphic later. Check it out, Dallas, Texas. It is in May. Sign up for it. Live.freightwaves.com. Register. Check it all out. That's a wrap for today's show. Don't worry, folks. A lot more great stuff coming up. I'll catch you again next week.